So we will be talking about ES6 arrow functions. Now if you want to remove this error from the previous video, we will have to remove this particular line and then save it. That is because we cannot redefine or reassign a const variable. I'm just going to make this smaller because we can then see this together. Okay, so there are no errors, the app hasn't crashed. So now what you can do is you can either remove this entire thing or you can just comment it out and let it be. So I am going to take this entire thing for future reference. I'm going to copy it, either Control C, or you can, I'm going to cut it back here, and you can copy it and go down to source, right click, new file, and call this as ES6 let and const. So this is practice.js. Here I'm going to go ahead and save it, and I'm going to paste it and then save it and close it. So let's go back to index.js right here, and we will be talking about ES6 arrow functions. So let us first do this with ES5, and then we can compare with ES6 function and then see the difference between the two. It might take some time for you to, if you have learned ES5 earlier, and if you've done JavaScript and ES5 earlier, it might take some time for you to shift from ES5 to ES6 and ES7. It is totally worth it, and React actually needs a lot of arrow functions. So we have to learn ES6 and ES7, and you don't have a choice because a lot of things in React does use ES6 arrow functions. So let's go right ahead and let's call this as a square. So if you observe, I'm not using var anymore, I'm using const. So a const square is equal to, so I'll be doing the ES5 function first. So we call the ES5 function keyword, and then I want to square it, so I'll call it as x star x, and the input I'll be taking is x, the argument, and I'm going to go down here and say console.log I'll call the function, that function is nothing but square, and I will give it some value. Let's find the square of 3, and then I put semicolon and then save it. So that gives us 9 right here. Square of 3 is 9, and that is absolutely right. So let's do the same thing with arrow functions. So it's very similar. So that will be const sq arrow, because I want to have a different name. Sq arrow is equal to, so we will have to omit the function keyword and just directly the brackets and the argument, that will be x. Open the brackets. Just before opening these brackets, you will have to put the arrow function. Now how do you put the arrow? So you'll have to put equals to and the greater symbol, that will be your arrow. So equals to and greater than symbol on your keyboard will be the arrow, and that's your arrow function right there. So let's return x star x, that will be the square, and let's log it out. So here I'll be calling sq arrow, and I will give a value as 9. So square of 9 is 81. Let's see if that comes, and 81 is right here. So the only difference is the syntax. What they're doing is the same thing. I can put a return value, another function, another variable, anything here. It's just the same thing, but you will have to remove the function keyword. And it will also help you in different ways, and you don't have to put the function keyword. It's just so much more simpler. Alright. Similarly, we can also use something called ES6 arrow function expression syntax. Now in this it makes it even more simpler. So here go ahead and say const square ex, I'll call it sqex, is equal to, so here we'll be putting the same argument x again and the arrow function, and here we will not be typing out return and all that. If it's a single expression, just go ahead and no brackets, x star x, that is the square, and that's the asterisk, and that's about it, and we can go ahead and log it out. So that's console dot log sqex, and we need to give it some value, so we can give it as 5. Let's save this, and you can see the square of 5 is 25, and I have used something called ES6 arrow function expression syntax, which makes it just a single line, and that's how you define the function. How simple is that? But you can't really use this for everything, so it's better to use this, and sometimes we might have to use ES5. Now there is nothing wrong in using ES5, but when you have a better choice, a better option, it is always useful to use the better option. Obviously, why would you want to use an older syntax? Many lines of codes have been written with ES5. It doesn't mean that it's wrong. We just have a better option and we're going to choose that. They all do the same thing, but the only difference is how they are set up. So let's go ahead, and I want to comment all of these. Control C K, and you can either delete it or comment it. I've just commented right now so that I can put it in another folder and put it all together. So go ahead and say const get, this is like a small practice, so let's just do that. So const get first name, so we'll input a full name and we'll just get the first name out of the first name and the second name. So get first name and open the brackets, arrow function, open the curly brackets and say return. So if you want to return, we'll have to return a full name. So let's take the input as, let's take an argument saying full name, and let's first log it out. Get first name, and we can put the value here, that is JOH and John Doe. So this is the full name. Now I just want the first name, just John. So I'm going to go ahead and say full name dot split. I'm going to choose the space, so I am going to split where there is a space. So that's what I'm trying to put over here. This is the space. I'm going to split the full name where there is space. So get first name is the function. This is the argument which goes here, the full name, and full name is getting split when there is a space. So John and Doe are split, and I just want John. Now it is, when I use split, it is split into an array. So there is in 0 index there's John, and there's 1 for the first index there's Doe. I want only John, that is the first name. So I'm going to put brackets and I'm going to say 0, and I'm going to put the semicolon, and then I'm going to save this. And here we go, we just get John. When we input the value John Doe, we're just going to get John. And that's what I did with this arrow function. So to do this, I used arrow function, and further on we will not be using ES5 functions, we'll be using arrow functions only. Alright, so let's go ahead and comment this out as well. You can either delete the entire thing if it's a little confusing. You can comment this by saying Ctrl K C. Now let us talk about this keyword, and as soon as I finish with this part of a few more coding lines, we will move back to React. So let us talk about this keyword. Let us first do it with the ES5 function and then with the ES6. and I will show you the difference that way, so you'll know why you're using ES6 and what's the advantage of ES6 over ES5. This keyword is no longer bound, and I will explain what that means as we go on with our coding this keyword in those particular lines of code. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, first let's just put a addition function. Alright, so addition, addition is equal to, we're using arrow functions for this, and I will tell you why we're doing this a little later. And so that's your arrow function, and we're going to return the addition value, so that's a plus b, and we'll just give it some value. So console.log addition, so first one will be 2 and the second one will be 2, that will give us 4. Save this, and that's 4, and you will get that only if you please do either delete this or you can comment it out. So let's go ahead and do this. So I'm going to do it as a customer. So let's take a customer object, and we will loop over the places this customer has been. We'll take his name and locations or the cities that person has been to, and we want to loop over this. So first let's create a customer object, customer customer is equal to, open the brackets, and then let's put the name. I'll name him as John Doe, and the cities this person has been to recently would be put in an array, so we can loop over it and we don't have to type each time. So let's say New York, he's been to Bangalore, and he's been to Berlin. Alright, so then we will also place a function using, first let's do it in ES5, and as I said earlier, we'll be doing it in ES5 and then we'll be doing it in ES6. Now there's a function which takes his name and this customer's name and loops over the cities this customer has been to in a certain period of time. So print cities lived is the method, and that's how we are going to put a function in ES5 in an object. And this is not wrong, it's perfectly right. So then I'm going to say console.log to access this object's properties. I'm going to use this keyword, this.name, and then I'm going to log out the cities this person has visited in a certain period of time. So again, I'm going to access using this keyword, I'm going to access this object customer, and I'm going to access cities. Alright, so let's save that, and it says customer is assigned a value but never used, so we'll have to call the function or else it won't work. Now before doing that, I want to loop over all the cities this fellow has been to. Now I just don't want one city, I want all the cities, so I'm going to use for each, and this dot cities dot for each function keyword and city. So what this does is it's going to access customer object, and it's going to go to cities, and it is going to loop over this array of what's there in this cities object. So whatever is there is New York, Bangalore and Berlin, it has to loop over this. So I'm going to use for each, and the function is going to take, so it is a function itself, so it is going to take one variable called city, and it's going to loop over each of these in cities 0, 1 and 2. So city will go to New York, city will go to Bangalore, and city is Berlin. So it's going to go each one of them, and we'll access each of these from city. Now let's open this, and here I'm going to log it out. sorry about that. So console.log this dot name plus has visited space plus this dot city, not cities, it is city, because we are going to use this to loop over that. We're going to use city to loop over cities, and we're going to print that. Now I'm going to call out, so just put a bracket here. We'll open a bracket and close a bracket, because with open for each, but we've never closed it. If you can see that, it's closed here, so that will give us an error. So go ahead, and if you have a bracket here, please remove that and close the bracket here. This entire thing is the function and its arguments. Now after all this is over, come out in the end and call out the customer dot print places lived. Save it. Here we go. So it's John Doe is the name, and the places he's been to, the two objects have been printed, and has visited undefined. It says an undefined. And why does it say undefined? Because I've actually looped over it. So the problem here is that this is no longer bound, so it'll go to its parent and not just stay here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove function keyword. I'm going to put the arrow. I'm going to save it. Now it says John Doe has visited undefined. It's the same error again. Now let us see why this is the problem. Now that is because I have used this here. This refers to the customer object. Now we are already referring this to the customer and we're looping over it. So city is already there and we don't have to use this dot city. This is a big error. And that I did so that we could check if it is actually referring to the object, and it is. So now when you save it, you can go ahead and see here that John Doe has visited New York, John Doe has visited Bangalore, and John Doe has visited Berlin. Here you can observe what I just did. So I used arrow functions. When I used arrow functions, it's no longer bound to this print cities.lib, so it can refer to this and it can loop over it. Now what if we do the same thing over here? Now what does bound mean? It can go up, it can go out of this particular scope. The scope is here, this is the scope. Now I want to get out of the scope, so because I'm using arrow functions, I got out of the scope and went over here. Now what if I do the same thing here? Let's remove the function keyword and let's put the arrow and save this. The app just crashed. Now the reason is not everywhere is the arrow keyword useful. We sometimes have to use ES5. Now why that happened is because, as I said, it is no longer bound to this object anymore. So this entire thing, when I call this keyword, it is no longer bound to name and cities. It's no longer bound to customer object. It's going to go to its parent and going to search here for name and cities, which is not there, and that's why the error. So to fix this, but I still want to use the arrow keyword, what we can do is, this is completely valid. We can go ahead, remove the entire thing and save it. Here we go, we're back again. So that fixed that problem, and this is a completely valid ES6 syntax for an object function to create a function inside the object. So that is not a problem. So I think you learned a lot from this particular ES6 and ES7 syntax, and we will be going back to React in our next video.